Everybody, it's Roger and James here from the DisKingdom Podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking all about God of War and kind of how it kind of interconnects with the Marvel side, how it doesn't connect with it. I've played through this game the last month. I'm going to be straight up. Fantastic game. Absolutely loved it. If you want a proper single-player experience, this is the game to get. I'd never played God of War at all before. This was kind of like a bit of a whim on the last week. It was getting such good reviews from everywhere. I was like, this sounds too good. And jumped in, loved it. I have completed the main story. I've gone in and done some side quests. I'm going to try and stay a little bit spoiler-free. For James primarily, because you're only about, I think, halfway through or something at the minute. Is that right?
I just got to Jotunheim, which is the land of the giants. So I think that's a give or take halfway through.
Yeah.
I have some theories about where the story's going to go, but I'm not going to do them on this on this podcast. And yeah, we'll try to keep it as spoiler free as possible. However, there will be a certain amount of spoiler because the way we're connecting this to DisKingdom or Disney World and all that fun stuff is through Thor.
Yeah.
Now, for myself, I don't know what happens after. Thor himself has not shown up in the game for me yet. I don't say anything, Roger. I can tell. But his sons have.
Yes.
His sons have, which might be a surprise to people if your only introduction to Thor is through the Marvel comics. And now I have to admit my Norse mythology is not the best. I did know he had sons. I also know he has goats and all sorts of fun stuff. But yeah, he has sons. He has two sons, and they're morons.
Yeah,
Clear on that.
It's this is the, I think for me again, my Norse mythology is Marvel basically. Thor to me was just Marvel. It didn't. I really didn't know too much about it at all. I mean, it seemed like Thor. I knew that was about it, really. Everything else, Odin, Loki, all of that, that's all I know from Marvel. Whatever happens there, Jotunheim and Asgard, that's just purely Marvel to me. Now, obviously, that's just their interpretation of the classic thing. In the same way, Hercules is done, Disney done a version, and also Marvel have got a version, and there's a few other different versions of him going around.
Even DC has a version, because all of these mythological characters, Thor included, Hercules included, they don't have any copyright. They're all long out of copyright, even by the most stringent laws of any nation. So, the two companies, DC and Marvel, they do tend to try and stay off of each other's toes on that. So you don't see Thor pop up too often in the DC, but every once in a while, because and not to go too far off, the Marvel do have their own version of Hippolyta, who's the leader of the Amazons, and you may remember from the Wonder Woman movie, and that might surprise you because isn't Hippolyta DC? Well, kind of, maybe not really. But anyway, back to God of War and Norse mythology. It's worth keeping in mind. Marvel version of Norse mythology is extremely sanitized. Extremely. The Norse make the Greek and Roman gods look normal, completely sane. They are out of their mind.
Yeah, I mean, just hearing the stories of being told when you're going around the boat, and that's one of the things that I didn't expect to like, but I was really becoming very interested. And sometimes I'm like sitting in the boat going, I'm not landing because I want to hear the end of the story, because where he goes, oh, we'll pick this up later. No, I was quite, you could kind of keep going a bit.
Keep telling the story, man. I actually sat at boat docks, like the little pop-up would be on the screen, press the X button to dock, and be like, no, I don't want to dock, I want to hear this story.
It's like, that's such a weird thing in a video game. Normally, like, you want to jump on and get rid of, the yabbering away, and you got this... and it's like, no, that's the way they tell stories and talk about the way of Odin and like Freya and Thor and his son, and it's just like I was just really impressed with that, and that really kind of connected with me, maybe because of the whole thing with Marvel and the characters of like learning it from a different angle. It I feel like I've had a history lesson with playing God of War, but also I've had so much fun because it's just an awesome video game.
It is a great video game. I am hoping, actually, I don't remember when this came up, but I was having a conversation with someone, and I'm really hoping that Square Enix is taking notes from this, and that we see some of this influence their work on the Avengers title that we know nothing about. Because the conversation I was having was, this is basically one of the best superhero games that's out there because of the abilities that Kratos has, the abilities that you can call upon with Atreus. Also, if you strip out the mature themes, and there are many, you have basically a superhero story. And I'm really hoping that Square and whoever else is working on, not just Marvel titles, but DC or any of the Image comics that are in the works as well, implement some of this stuff, because there are a lot of very good gameplay loops in this.
Yeah, but I mean, this kind of connects also up to what Sony have done before, because Infamous, that was a fantastic, that was a fantastic one. I haven't yet played Sunset Overdrive on the Xbox because I think that's kind of we're heavily influenced Spider-Man.
I'm hoping it does, because there's a lot going on in that game. But there's also that game. It's very different from Infamous in terms of controls and themes and all that.
Just the idea that we've had a couple of games from on the PlayStation 4 which are superhero movie games, but without all the connection with it all, and they've been doing a fantastic job of making it. And I mean, you're playing as and you're just feeling like you are Thor. That the axe is the hammer. That is the exact same mechanism of how it works. And I mean, once he gets his blades and all the rest of it, it's in just the idea of jumping up. I mean, with jumping between Midgard and Asgard, and it's just like this weird thing of Jotunheim and the giants and all this kind of thing, and it feels so familiar as well. And
I haven't gotten to the point where you get the chains back.
No, it's
I already knew.
Well, the thing is for me, is because I'd not played the original ones at all. I, for some reason, missed it. The game, this whole series had flashed me by. So this was about getting me in at the starter, and now I it's like, okay, I'd like to learn more, but of course I can't go back because this one was so great. Everything's gonna suck compared to this new version, and and also connecting up with Zeus and all this kind of stuff, because I obviously wasn't expecting all of that. So it's like, okay, this is just really interesting, and where we were going and what we were doing. So it's just been a very impressive video game.
Yeah, it absolutely has, and I'm actually really glad that we're seeing a lot more Norse mythology popping in to not just games but movies, shows, etc. Because I think it was last year at this point, we had Hellblade Senua come out, and that's very steeped in Norse mythology as well. And of course, many, many years ago, Skyrim, obviously not using real Norse mythology, but heavily influenced by it. And so we're seeing a transition from Greek and Roman mythology and a little bit of Egyptian mythology. Assassin's Creed was heavily, the most recent one was heavily steeped in Egyptian mythology.
Fantastic game. I completed that one.
I'm looking forward to trying that. The rumors are that the next one's going to be in Japan, and I'm hoping that those rumors pan out, because that'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But in any event, so I don't know, to kind of sum this all up for people, it's a great game, and I think that if you've seen the Thor movies, you've seen Ragnarok, this is a nice little segue into a more authentic version of Norse mythology. And it's going to be a shock, because the characters are very different from what you know.
Yeah, I mean, I was finding myself Googling the characters and looking up on Wikipedia and reading about them, reading about because I mean, there's a lot of different versions going around according to because it's so old, but that thing of going, well, what's going on? Who's it? Because it literally, I had that Marvel vision in my head of what these characters were, and this is so different. And Thor, and I mean, I think it was just that thing of playing along, the first bit of game, and hadn't really known about the Norse connection really, and suddenly they're going Thor, and then there's this massive, great big, and then they talk about Odin, and then they're talking about Midgard, and I'm sitting there going, hey, I didn't know any of this was coming, so I was completely shocked when it started being mentioned, and I'm like, here's Thor with his hammer, and I'm like, okay, this is very, very, I wasn't expecting that, and it just got me so drawn in. I mean, I literally was my wife went to bed, and I was playing for 3 hours a night just for weeks because of just loving it. And I feel like at this precise minute, with single-player games in the last 18 months, I think I've gone through and completed God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, Breath of the Wild, Assassin's Creed, Mario Odyssey. I feel like I've had some fantastic single-player experiences, which EA don't think are very good anymore.
Apparently, yeah. I mean,
I run off that list of games that I've completed in like the last year plus. I mean, that's a list of some awesome video games.
Yeah, it's been a great time to be a single-player game fan, which is not to say it hasn't been a good time to be a multiplayer fan. We were talking earlier this week, or earlier this night for us, about Fortnite, which is blowing up the multiplayer scene. I mean, it's between it and PUBG, the Battle Royale gameplay has become so popular. Even Call of Duty is going to be mimicking it in the next installation. It's just, it's just a great time to be a gamer. Period. And I think as long as Fortnite, and you're not off chasing Thanos right now, and you have a PlayStation 4, God of War, it's just called God of War, but it's really God of War 4, is an absolutely fantastic addition to your library. Absolutely check it out. And yeah, even though this version of Thor and Odin and all these guys are very different from what you expect, you'll get drawn in anyway.
It's just fantastic. You can't put it across. If you've got a PlayStation 4, buy it. I know it's for some reason a bit more expensive. Didn't really have a massive discount. I ended up buying it digitally because there was no difference in price, and I got my 50 quid's worth. I feel that was money well spent.
Yeah, it'll probably be a couple weeks before it really starts seeing discounts. If you are in the States or Canada, Best Buy Gamers Club Reward does work with that. That's a 20% off the top. Amazon Prime is, of course, no longer viable because it's not a pre-order anymore. But, I mean, yeah, the sales will start coming maybe here in the States around July 4th, right around Independence Day. Probably actually around the same time for you guys across the pond, because that's about the time frame that the discounts start to come on single player. But, yeah, between the story, the combat, the RPG elements, and then also I know that this is going to be more of a niche thing, but they just added it in a photo mode to the game, which honestly I've spent a freaking ton amount of time because that game is just so good looking that I've got about 150 screenshots on my PlayStation right now. Yeah, I mean it's just the way that they do. I've set mine up because mine's on the Pro, but I set it to work for performance rather because I was reading a lot of different articles about say. Go for performance and you get like smooth 60 frames a second, and it's smooth as butter because it's rolling. Whereas go for the performance issue or the looks, it looks great, but it runs at 30 frames a second, and I couldn't really tell much of a difference. But it's like, I found like when it was getting a bit later on, but like I was jumping around a little bit, but it does look just stunning on the big screen. I'm glad they fixed it so you could see the text because it was tiny on day one. Yeah, so the game came out while I was moving, so I didn't actually get to play it until several days, actually like a week or so after it came out. And it was one of those things I was like, the move has been successful. I'm going to treat myself to a game. And it was that game. Also, I had no internet, so I needed to make sure it was a game I could play on my own. So I didn't encounter that issue, but I do remember that being mentioned before. And I had one other thing. Frame rate. This is not something specific to God of War. I will probably get a little bit of hate mail for this. I am a PC gamer at heart, so I do love my 60 frames, or if you've got the power for it, 144. But I don't think the difference between 30 and 60 is all that important. It's maintaining a consistent frame rate. Because you get used to the 30 frames per second. Yeah, it's not as smooth as 60, but you get used to it, and it's when it drops. When it goes from 30 to 20 that really kind of jars you, and you get that same effect when you go from 60 to 50 because it's changing on you. Ideally, 60 is better. I definitely would recommend performance mode, 60 frame. That the smoothness of the combat really is enhanced by the 60 frames. But as long as it maintains 30 frames consistently, I think you're fine going with the visual mode too, if that's your preference. But no,
it's the kind of thing of like, just play this game because it's fantastic. I can't put it up enough, and that whole connection I think with like Marvel 4, it really helped because it felt like I was playing as Thor with the axe, and it just, and on them talking about it, it just completely just just engulfed me, and I was really impressed with how it happened.
Yeah. So one last comment, because we have been praising the heck out of this game.
Yeah.
I do want to tell you, in case it hasn't been obvious, if you are thinking about buying this for your kid, don't. Unless you are willing to sit there and play it with them and explain to them all of the horrible, awful things that are happening on the screen. Blood, werewolves getting ripped in half.
Yeah. You'll see some of it in the gameplay.
Yeah, don't.
Because I figured it's going to get flagged anyway, because it was like God of War. It's like, yeah, we'll just go for it. I tried to stay away from some of it.
Obviously, as a parent, you know what you consider acceptable for your kids. But yeah, this is a hard R. This is a very mature title, so take that into account.
And especially when you meet the dwarfs as well, because their language is a bit colourful, especially the little blue one.
The little. I will admit the other one, the not blue one.
Yeah,
he amuses me so much.
It's got some great humor in it. But yeah, so there we go. So that was, just thought we'd talk a little bit about God of War and it's kind of the connection and stuff that they had to Marvel and just how good the game was. As per usual, guys, go check us out over at DisKingdom.com. You can like, subscribe, follow on all different platforms. James, where can they find you?
You can find me at heroiclegacy.com.
And on that, guys, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back soon. Laters. Boy!
Later.